Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem, Oregon, online service for Sunday, April 19, 2020. My name is Janet, and I am the celebrant for today's service. Although I am here alone, I feel connected to each and every one of you. I miss seeing you. I miss your hugs. I miss your kind voices and your smiles. But for today, let us be together in spirit so that we can all remain healthy and gather together in our beautiful sanctuary when it is safe. At UUCS, we are all walking our own spiritual path, and yet we are a community, welcoming and supporting the journeys of each individual.
Our opening hymn today is number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth.
As surely as we belong to the earth, we belong together. We are a community. We are each in our own space, but we are together here in spirit. Let us transcend isolation and be together. We feel the warmth of the same sun and share the blessings of Mother Earth. Please join me in saying our affirmation. Love is our doctrine. Compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration. Build a community of caring fellowship. Nurture the hopes and serve the needs of our world. Just as the earth holds and nourishes the seed, the light of this chalice holds and nourishes the light of knowledge, the warmth of community, and the hope of a better world. Let us be together, sharing one sun, one earth. Let us worship. I often hear people say that we need to save our planet. Well, actually, that's not true. This planet will be here millions and millions of years from now, no matter what we do. But the living things, the plants, the animals, the bugs, the fish, the protozoa, all the billions and billions of living organisms that surround us every day, they do need to be saved from us, humans. It's so easy to think it's not my fault, not my problem, or I'm only one person and it's an awfully big world. But you do have the power to make a difference, to change the world. Sometimes the best way to make a change is to start small. By making changes in our own lives and habits, we change our thinking, our values. For example, a few years ago, I decided to no longer buy paper towels or disposable cleaning products. I also chose not to buy plastic products like plastic wrap, Ziploc bags, or even Tupperware. At first, it was a hard change, but now I don't even miss them. It's normal for me to use cloth rags to clean or mason jars for food storage. Did I save the planet? No. Did I change my world? Yes. And maybe somewhere there's a fish that didn't get tangled in a piece of plastic, or a tree that didn't have to get cut down because I chose to make a small change. We are a community, and you do not walk alone through these tough times. We acknowledge that many of you are experiencing personal tragedies, losses, and hardships. Please know that you are in our hearts. Reverend Rick and our Lifelines volunteers want to help. If you are struggling or lonely or in need, please, I encourage you to reach out to them. Let's take a moment and offer our blessing to those struggling at this time. There are so many wonderful things that have not been canceled. Flowers of every color are blooming. Birds of every size are singing, and there are smiles in people's eyes behind those masks. Spring has truly brought hope to these strange times. Focus for a moment on something beautiful or enlightening you have experienced this week. My hope for you in the coming week is that you know you are loved. A seed knows how to wait. Most seeds wait for several years before starting to grow. A cherry seed can wait for 100 years with no problem. What exactly each seed is waiting for is known only to that seed. Some unique trigger combination of temperature, moisture, light, and many other things is required to convince a seed to jump off the deep end and take its chance. Take its one and only chance to grow. A seed is alive while it waits. Every acorn on the ground is just as alive as the 300-year-old oak that towers over it. When you go into the forest, you probably tend to look up at the plants that have grown taller than you could ever imagine or ever hope to. You probably don't look down, where beneath just your single footprint sit between 100 and 1,000 seeds, each one alive and waiting. When you are in a forest, for every tree that you see, there are no less than 3 million more trees waiting, fervently wishing to be. When the embryo within a seed starts to grow, it basically just stretches out of its doubled over posture, elongating into the official ownership of the form that it assumed years ago. The hard coat that surrounds each peach pit, a sesame or a mustard seed or a walnut shell mostly exists to prevent this expansion. In the laboratory, we simply scratch the hard coat and add a little water, and that's enough to make almost any seed grow. I must have cracked 1,000 seeds over the years, and yet the next day's green never fails to amaze me. Something so hard can be so easy if you just have a little help. In the right place, under the right conditions, you can finally stretch out into what you're supposed to be. Each beginning is the end of a waiting. We are given exactly one chance to be. Both of us, each of us, is both impossible and inevitable. Every replete tree was first a seed that waited.
Good morning, friends. This week, as you may know, is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. It originated in 1970 as a great national and global awakening of environmental awareness, the awareness of the immense damage wrought by our industrial civilization on our life-sustaining planet. I was in college then, a junior at Ohio Wesleyan University. And like most of my peers, I was caught up in the enthusiasm of that moment, attending rallies, marching, watching the news. We were full of hope that finally our nation and world would commit, as we put it then, to cleaning up the environment. How naive we were. For a while, of course, the promise of Earth Day seemed to be coming to fruition, as our president, even a Republican like Nixon, established the Environmental Protection Agency, and our Congress passed landmark legislation like the National Environmental Policy Act, the Wilderness Act, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Endangered Species Act, and so forth. What we failed to recognize at the time, however, was the moneyed interests in their corporate boardrooms quickly realized that environmental awareness is bad for business. Despite the efforts of people like President Carter to encourage us to save energy, develop solar and wind, and curb our reckless consumerism for the sake of future generations, the captains of industry, especially the fossil fuel industry, galvanized Congress and the media to reverse course. And so, a mere decade later in 1980, that first era of progressive environmental legislation came to a grinding halt with the election of corporate-backed Ronald Reagan, who immediately set to work encouraging greed and consumerism and slashing funding for every environmental protection program he could find. With a few exceptions, under Clinton and Obama, it has been downhill otherwise ever since. Earth Day has been reduced to little more than a sentimental children's holiday for celebrating pandas and recycling bottles. Meanwhile, the use of fossil fuels throughout the world continues to expand, wreaking havoc on our climate, while plastics choke our oceans. Species disappear in record numbers. National migration cycles are disrupted. Wildfires rage across Australia and California. Ice caps melt, fisheries are depleted, and our elected officials are so thoroughly bought out by corporate interests that legislation in the long-term public interest becomes all but impossible. I do not need to remind you that we are all facing an existential crisis these days. A time when both a medical and an economic cataclysm with no clear end in sight is now crashing down on us at accelerating rates throughout the world. This is especially the case in our country due to the abysmally bad leadership of Donald Trump. So here we are. As an unstoppable virus ravages the world, the global industrial and commercial civilization whose abundant fruits we have all enjoyed throughout our lives is paralyzed and is on tenuous life support. Both medically and economically, our future is uncertain, but we can be sure that it will never be the same again. As Shakespeare writes in King Lear, the worst is not so long as we can say, this is the worst. For many years before this happened, I was well aware that our global market economy was doomed. There were many convergent reasons for this, but they all derive from one fact. An economy and civilization based on the endless expansion of commerce is fundamentally incompatible with a finite living planet. My coinage for the global market economy is GLOMART, the order of money, which is the world that we made. The order of nature is Gaia, the world that made us. To survive, we need both. GLOMART provides our livelihood, the money we make, the food we eat, the goods we purchase. But Gaia provides the very foundation of our lives. The air we breathe, the topsoil that grows our food, the water we drink, and the diverse ecosystems that both sustain and enrich our lives. The major premise of GLOMART, of any system based on money, is that more is always better. This is assumed without question by every corporate boardroom on the planet and promoted by every ad you see on television. It follows that nature has no value in this system until it is transformed into commodities, forests into board feet, mountains into quarries for minerals, prairies into monocultures, land into real estate, and so on. Gaia, our living planet, is a complex adaptive system based on regenerative ecological networks, where the guiding rule is the exact opposite. Enough is enough. too much or too little of any biological value is toxic to the system. If we get too hot or too cold, we die. If we get too fat or thin, we die. If our population outgrows its carrying capacity, we die. And if we trash the matrix of our lives, our lands, waters, air, and biodiversity, we also die. So in effect, GLOMART is a cancer on Gaia, a subsystem of our living Earth that is parasitizing its own biological support system in order to keep growing and growing. So the collapse of GLOMART is, or was, inevitable. Still, this knowledge is small comfort in these days of GLOMART's inevitable collapse. So how do we cope? How do we turn this crisis into an opportunity? My short answer, formulated long before this crisis occurred, is a simple slogan: grow gardens, grow community, grow awareness. To unpack this slogan a bit, let's take them one at a time. Grow gardens. Our global agriculture and food distribution systems are under immense strain as a consequence of this pandemic. So it is essential that we localize our food system as quickly as possible. We can start today by planning to turn our lawns and ornamental beds into food growing areas. We can study and practice permaculture methods for regenerating our topsoil with compost and mulch, turn our yard waste into hugelkultur mounds, and dig swales to retain water in the dry season. I highly recommend a book by the late Toby Hemingway called Gaia's Garden. Just show it to you here, which is an excellent guide to backyard permaculture. Learning to grow gardens with permaculture methods will not only ensure and diversify our own food supply, it will also diversify our skills, provide healthier food, reduce our collective reliance on toxic fertilizers and pesticides, save energy and water, sequester carbon, and thereby address climate change, and regenerate our topsoil. In short, the growing gardens with permaculture methods is good for us, good for our communities, and good for our planet. 2, grow community. In our GLOMART consumer society, we are defined by our possessions. To be is to buy. So we are constantly urged to go shopping at impersonal big box stores and to enclose ourselves within privacy fences at home. But this has greatly eroded and attenuated any sense of community with our immediate neighbors. So we need to get to know our neighbors, whether they are people like us or not. It is often the people who are least like us that have the most to teach us. And this is especially true with gardening and other practical skills. Reaching out to our neighbors can be a challenge, but it is a challenge well worth pursuing, because in a traumatic crisis, such as the breakdown of the food supply system, the neighbor we know can be our best friend, while the neighbor we don't know can be our worst enemy. But growing community goes well beyond the basic skills of getting to know, appreciate, and work with our neighbors. It also involves getting more actively engaged in our larger communities, including and especially UUCS, but also local nonprofit and charitable organizations and our city and state governments. GLOMART thrives when we are passive consumers, sitting in front of our televisions or driving our cars to Walmart. But we must instead relearn the art of active citizenship of our neighborhoods, our city, our state, our nation, and our living planet. Grow awareness. This injunction infuses all the others. I do not mean trying to win others over to our political or religious views. That is utter folly and will only make enemies. I do mean chatting with people casually in our neighborhood whenever we see them, learning from them, teaching them useful skills, helping them when they need it, and engaging in collaborative creativity to solve collective problems and challenges. So growing gardens, growing community, and growing awareness are all intertwined. Each strengthens and encourages the other. The more gardens, the stronger communities, and the greater levels of awareness we have in our neighborhoods, the better off we'll be if and when the larger systems that sustain us start collapsing all around us. So let us all practice the arts of resilience, of neighborliness, of compassion to help each other survive this global ordeal and to build the foundations for a localized, resilient, and regenerative economy and a culture that knows itself to be a part of and not apart from the life of our sacred planet. As Glomart crumbles, let a true Gaian culture rise like a phoenix from its ashes, starting in our own backyards. Amen.
Spring brings new life and hope. Outside, nature is renewing the earth, replenishing the fields and forests, rebirthing the mountains and streams. Let us sit for a minute together and reflect. One purpose of this congregation is to encourage us to grow more generous in spirit and in action. Your generosity has enabled UUCS to continue to gather together, even while remaining apart. It is through your generosity that all the works of this congregation have grown and adapted. Now is the time for us to contribute to the financial support of all the ministries of this congregation. Our Share the Plate recipient for this month is Marion Pope Food Share. Donations are desperately needed to be sure that everyone has food in these unusual times. Donations and pledges may be made by logging onto our website, uusalem.org, or by mail. Thank you for your generosity. extinguish our chalice, I will light from it our social justice candle, which symbolizes the ways the ministries of this congregation support and nurture the wider world. As I extinguish our chalice, I offer you these words from Wendell Berry. Sowing the seed, my hand is one with the earth. Wanting the seed to grow, my mind is one with the light. Hoeing the crops, my hands are one with the rain. Having cared for the plants, my mind is one with the air. Hungry and trusting, my mind is one with the earth. Eating the fruit, my body is one with the earth.
I'm Christine Ertl, Chair of the Board of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem here, and I'm here to give you our stewardship campaign update. I've come to you before on the past few Sundays to share with you the progress of our campaign and the current needs. Our goal is to maintain our congregation's shared ministry. None of our staff works more than half-time. All of our staff have remained employed during the pandemic. Our teams, covenant groups, and affiliated ministries are thriving. Our financial status is because members and donors, people you know and care about who are motivated to give to the congregation in the first place, have contributed annually to this campaign. Last week, I asked you to consider how you can help each other during the pandemic. One answer I gave you was to increase your pledge. We need $20,000 to meet our goal of keeping staff, shared ministry, and programs running. 200 congregants increasing your annual donation by $100, which equals less than $10 per month, would enable us to reach this goal. Now, more than ever during this pandemic, we recognize the value of community and the blessings of our beloved congregation. Our stewardship campaign has brought us a long way towards meeting our goal, the goal of maintaining a vibrant, caring community. But we have a bit more distance to go, and I'm asking for your help. I'm asking those who can to contribute even more, to contribute $10 a month more. We know many of our congregants are not in the financial position to do so at this time, but I know those of you who are able to add more to your pledge will be grateful for the opportunity to be of service to others, offsetting the need to ask our most vulnerable congregants to do so. If you haven't signed an estimate of giving form, and thanks to all who have already participated, I urge you to do so. And if you've already submitted your pledge, you can add to it to increase this pledge. Simply calling the office is the fastest way to accomplish this. The office phone number is 503-364-0932, and it's available on our website if you can't catch that number. Our congregation is filled with thoughtful, caring people. Let's continue to demonstrate that through our increased pledges.
Although our building is closed, there is much happening in our community. You are all invited to join Reverend Rick for his weekly Chalice Side Chats. These are going to be held at 6 p.m. on Tuesday evenings. We welcome our new Director of Lifespan Religious Education, Lily Walker. Can the website for new and innovative activities for all ages. For current information on Zoom meetings, events, programs, Chalice side chats, etc., please log on to our website, uusalem.org, and you'll find all the information you need there.
Our closing hymn today is number 1021, Lean on Me.
So we can't join hands today to say our closing words. We can't place our hands on one another's shoulders either. But we can hold one another in each other's hearts as we say our closing words. Would you please join me as we say those closing words? May faith in the Spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come.